Hello, welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO and VC podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, business, and investing. And today I am welcoming to the show, an hour outside of Boston, Anthony Keys, where it is 7:10 p.m. on a Thursday evening, Friday morning here. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Hey, B, welcome. Thank you for welcoming me. This is great. I'm really excited to be here. And looking forward to the discussion.
Me too. I was saying to you just then, I get so much energy from these conversations. Like I can just feel like my face lights up because I'm just talking to such amazing leaders around the world, and everyone has a unique story, when it comes to their own business, as well as, from a VC perspective, how you're working with founders, all of that sort of thing. I want to start with something a bit random though. Can you just tell us a little bit about your backdrop and the picture behind us? Because I absolutely love it.
Sure. Yeah. So this is a tapestry map from about 1640. And obviously it's incomplete. So it doesn't have all the continents where they belong. It doesn't have all the coastlines where they belong. And so I keep this right behind me because I always want to remember that my map of the world is incomplete. I don't know everything. I don't have everything mapped. And so sure, it looks really nice. Absolutely. Thank you for the compliment. And I keep this here to keep myself straight. It's just to remind myself that I don't know everything. Maybe I never will. Modern maps have all the continents in the right places, but maybe my map of the world never gets there. But this map is to just remind me that, hey, guess what, guy? You're not there yet.
No, I love that. And what a great way to start the show, though, because it's also for me that the map is always shaping, it's shifting, it's continuous, right? Which is a great segue into you and your company that you started earlier this year. I think you said in January.
That's right.
So you're at the start of the map of Axion Ventures, and that's what a great, backdrop to have to continuously remind you. It also says to me a reminder that, to stay present, because we never know what's in front of us. And so we can only, it's each day at a time, especially when we're starting something new. I'm going to jump on into it, and I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us a bit about your journey, how you came to found Axion Ventures and all that goes with that. So Anthony, like I said, you are an operator, investor, and founder of Axion Ventures. You work where product, technology, finance, and venture come together, with founder and executive experience across identity, APIs, distributed systems, enterprise workflows, and AI-led product development. You're known for turning complexity into clearer operating systems, the kind that improves reliability, sharpens execution, and strengthens economics. Can't wait to unpack all of that. Your work spans across venture investing, startup advising, and company building, with a focus on helping founders move from promising technology to durable, scalable businesses. And you bring that systems lens to growth, better platforms, better governance, better decisions. Your belief that scale is rarely blocked by product alone. Often it is governance, alignment, and execution under pressure that determine whether a company compounds or stalls. And then when you responded to, when you booked in for the pod and I asked you what have you been shaping or reshaping? What's one unique insight you would like to share? You said Axion Ventures partners directly with startups. Like I said, you build their company with strong product market fit, relevant go-to-market strategy that lands with the ICP and keep LP interest aligned with founder success. Investing in the future of enterprise productivity software, AI is going to steal your job.
Yeah, that's quite a mouthful. Yeah, but yeah, that's all me. And yeah, so I guess let's start with AI is going to steal your job. I don't know if you read the Wall Street Journal. Last Friday, Bernie Sanders wrote an op-ed published by the Wall Street Journal that basically said AI is going to steal your job. You should be pretty panicked about it. And it needs regulation by the federal government. And this was a bid to introduce some legislation in the United States to regulate AI and LLM companies. So, I love the concept of Bernie Sanders. I love the thought of Bernie Sanders. I don't always agree with him. In this case, maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong. There might be a little bit of a spectrum there. First, AI is going to steal your job is a really extreme statement to say in a lot of cases for for white collar office jobs. However, my town doesn't have a blacksmith in 2026. And it might have 100 years ago, but there's no blacksmith here anymore. And I don't think most towns have blacksmiths now. So that is to say, the world is changing. And, there are cars now. The blacksmith might have, said, damn these cars coming around. Where's the horse and buggy? Where's the wagon I'm going to fix? But, now we've got huge numbers of mechanics. There's way more market. There's way more demand. The world has really opened up because of technological advancement. So I think maybe, it's not going to steal your job directly, but things are going to be different. Workflows are going to change. Things are going to tighten up. Boring jobs are going to get less boring. And I think ultimately we're going to be able to work on higher level, more interesting problems because there is no shortage of problems that human beings cause. So we could use all the help we could get in solving them.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really interesting when you talk around AI is going to steal your job. For me, it's going to steal your current job and what your current job looks like. And so then really the onus is on you, if you like, to then go, well, what does it look like? How do I reshape it back to this map? How do I make it work for me in a way that is future forward? It is recreating, redesigning what your skills or what your job is. Like I went to a conference yesterday and it was really interesting. It was an open core conference. I don't know if you're familiar with open core.
Very familiar. Yeah. Tell me more.
Yeah, and there was like 840 entrepreneurs there, and it was fascinating. And I was telling the guest previously on the show that there was, of the 840, it was like literally 10% women, which I thought was fascinating in itself. You could feel the energy in this room, right? And I was talking to a couple of guys I knew there, and one said to me, we're like, this is just COVID, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm a very curious person, and I'm noticing a lot of negative, pessimistic, because like you say, AI is going to steal your job. All these people are like in a state of flux. I think from a state of flux, it's like, well, what's the opportunity here? And
That's exactly right. Yeah. What is the opportunity here? Go
yeah,
on. Sorry.
and this guy who was hosting the event, super successful, he turned around and I was like, there you go. It was like an aha moment for me, when you hear all these people freaking out and almost like frozen. And he said, there is always new stuff to do. And for me, that's like, yeah, there is always new stuff to do. So if AI is stealing my current job or, enabling me to free up time, well, what am I going to do next? Because there is always something to do. So that's where we've got to put our mind to what problem can I solve? And I liked how you shared what you just shared then.
Yeah. Thanks. And it really is about problem solving. And I like that we kind of both came to that same conclusion. So my previous job was software development, software architecture, enterprise architecture. And with some of these tools, like OpenAI Codex or Claude Code, I can go back to that now on a part-time nights and evenings or weekends and evenings basis and be really productive there in ways that, when I transitioned from technology more toward the business side and investing side, I just didn't have the time to keep up with my real interest. Like I'm really interested and passionate about the technology side of things. And so I moved to the business side because I saw that my impact was a multiplier and I could compound others' efforts in an influential role rather than a direct individual contributor role. So that's how I moved from technology to business. But these new tools, they allow me to get through the boring parts, writing the boilerplate, the setup, like getting the system level stuff in place, right? Like writing an iPhone application that requires some setup. This thing can just do all the setup for me and I can get to the features. I
Yeah.
can get to the work that I actually want to do that's really interesting to me. Not like, oh, I gotta, to do the welcome screen on an iPhone now. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to build my feature where I'm using the GPS, the accelerometer, the
Yeah.
camera. I want to get to that as fast as I can. So AI is absolutely helping there in the software development community. I know a lot of people in that community, however, like, oh my God, like there's no respect for the business anymore. If you're not hand typing every line of code, then you're not professional. And it's like, I don't know that I buy that.
Mm.
I feel great using these tools. However, I've got to say there's a limit, and you hit that limit pretty quick when you know what you're doing, when you're using the tools, even when you're using the tools right. There are limits that you run into pretty quickly. Some of the limits that we run into in the startups that we're partnering with is, so the goal of some of these startups is to get enterprise sales as quickly as
Yeah.
possible. So that's business to business, and that means single sign-on is table stakes, just to get in the door, just to get your sponsor's approval to come in and pitch the company. So you've got to be able to let 3,000 people at your company all log in on day one to this new application. One of the limits to AI is no matter how many times you tell it, or at least in my experience and the experience of the startups that we're working with, B2B software development is still really hard for these things. So that's one of the limits that we're constantly running into. A feature has to work for the entire set of customers. And those customers each have 3,000 users or 500 users or 50 users. And the AI codes it so that one user can use it. And it's like, no, that's not quite it. So that's where the effort comes in steering and guiding, figure out what function does the AI serve? And you've got to
Mm.
tell it that. You've got to give it very specific instructions. It really helps to give it examples like, here's what I'm looking for. This worked in another startup. So look at this and try to make it look like this
Yeah.
on the other
Tip.
side. And then here's the context that we're working in, right? This is a B2B healthcare company. And, so it's not just like a simple description like that. It's product requirement documents, it's financial models that you're feeding in to the LLM to try to get a working product on the other side. So it can do the broad strokes pretty quickly, but once you're getting into the feature level implementation, that's where Axion Ventures and the startups that we're working with start to see this break down a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So tell me, Axion Ventures started it earlier this year. Tell us a little bit about, creating the company, starting the company. What was it? Like, was there a moment, was there something that you were like, I'm ready to officially start Axion Ventures? Like, where did it all come from?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a very long story. It's actually two stories that converge. So the longer part is many years ago in 2008. I was working for a Boston-based startup that went out of business, and I was laid off. The entire company was shut down on a Friday morning, and it's probably not a good thing to be at the liquor store at 10:30 a.m. on a Friday morning. I was at the liquor store. I picked up a six-pack of beer. I went home to my wife at the time and I said, hey, it looks like I'm starting a business. By Tuesday afternoon, I had my first client. And so that went exceptionally well. I I was in the right place, the right time, the right product, and things went really well there. I developed a lot of channel partnerships. I did the founder-led sales journey. I did product market fit, and that was all really difficult. And I did that as a solo technical founder. After things went really well there, I went back into corporate gigs for a while, and I went to Babson College and got my MBA. And while at Babson College pursuing that, I met my business partner, Shunfu Hu, and we've had a number of classes together. In the years since, we've done a lot of work together outside of Axion Ventures. We've both got finance backgrounds and technology backgrounds. He's more on the investment banking side. I'm more on the operator side. So we have complementary skill sets that makes us really good partners. It makes us really good partners for each other. It makes us really good partners for investors and for startup founders as well, because if I don't know somebody, he does. And if he doesn't know somebody, I do. Long story short, there was the startup that I started as a solo technology founder. And then, just through an MBA, I met my current business partner. And last year, we're talking like, you know what? Why don't we make an investment here? We see the winds are changing. we see enterprise technology is in a land of opportunity right now. There's chaos here,
Yeah.
and chaos is an opportunity to find potential by injecting just the right amount of order and investment and company structure on top of it. So last year we were talking, and it's like, you know, you're really good at these things in building a company. You're really good at finding investors. I'm saying this to Shunfu. You've got a lot of investors. Your business acumen is fabulous. I trust you with a lot of these big financial decisions that you and I are making together. And then he comes to me and he says, "Hey, you're great as an operator. I see you advising these startups. You're getting positive results. You're helping these startups generate revenue. You're helping these startups retain customers. You're helping these startups figure out where they are in the world so that they can build a repeatable process." There are a lot of startup founders that come to us and say, "Hey, we've got a killer product. We've got customers. We have no idea how we did it." It's like, all right, we can help with that. We can absolutely help with that.
And that's the
So
system piece, right? Like that's the system piece, isn't it? Because they've come up with this idea and then they're like, we don't know how we came up with this,
exactly,
which blows my head off because I'm like, surely,
exactly.
like, like it doesn't just happen, or maybe it does. Like, and then you put the system around it, the order in the house, the governance, the structure, the commercial strategy, all of that.
That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
fascinating. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I
That's
interrupted you.
exactly right. Oh no, you're perfect. So I think that answers your question. How did we come to this? It came, just in a conversation mid last year. I think we've got some money each to throw into the pot. So in venture capital, the founders, the general partners generally throw in 1%. So, we're like, all right, we've got some money to invest. We're well diversified elsewhere, and we can invest in venture capital now. And at that point, well, you're an operator, you're an investor, you've got a great network. We've got great networks on both sides. So let's do this. Let's do this, knowing that, it's not going to go exactly as planned. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to immediately pay off, like we're both taking pay cuts to do this. But, let's do something fun, where it's stable enough points in life, we're established such that, this is something that we can do. And, like I say, it's not fun. Like there are some parts of it that are not fun. There are some parts of it. Oh, yeah, the not fun parts are awful. So some of the not fun parts are, um, there are a lot of founders who are super committed to their idea. And I don't blame them. I was super committed to my idea when I was way back when. And a lot of them are like this close to the problem. And they don't necessarily like back out and see like this is a solution looking for a problem. So gently letting down founders who look, it might be a great product, might generate customers someday. It's just not an investment that we're willing to make at this time. Some of it's like coachability of the founders. So Axion Ventures, we partner with the startup founders. Like if this is a case where if you get an investment from us, it's not just here's $500,000, off you go, see you in a year, and the numbers better be good. It's here's $500,000, and you get to see my bright smiling face first thing in the morning, investing this money wisely so that our LPs know that they're getting a great
Okay.
deal out of
Yeah.
this investment fund. So sorry, did that? Oh, I can go on about things that aren't
And that
fun.
makes sense. I do want to, like, the coachability piece is fascinating, and it's a constant conversation. These founders get this injection of cash and off they go. And, once you have, give away a bit of equity, if you like, it's not, it's not just your business anymore. So you have to be accountable. You have to hit these targets. You have to hit these numbers. And I think quite often, like it's always interesting, the bootstrapping versus, like seeking funding, etc., and just understanding the implications and, the governance and responsibility you have to your investor. I always think that's a really interesting point. The other part you talked about, though, is this, like you did this, you came close up to the screen
Yeah.
and founders getting caught up on something. And I've actually just more recently realized it about myself. I've been stuck on something where I've just like been really, I believe in it so much. I've actually now seen, though, a solution to the problem that, as much as this part of my business is a really big part of my business, I've been
Yeah.
seeing it as like the holy grail, if you like, and actually going, well, why is it stuck? Why am I stuck? And I've been doing this and like this, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden I've gone, ah. And so my question to you, though, is, and what I've been researching and reading and trying to understand more, and because you kind of go, gosh, why is this taking so long? Or, it's back to the map, etc. A lot of founders don't look up, and they don't actually necessarily go pull out. And so they keep going, or they quit. They quit because they're like, it's not working. And, so what do you, I guess my question to you is, how often do you see a founder like this and then able to look up and go, I see it now? Or how often do you see a founder in all your, past experience, and even now, obviously different because you're investing, so you wouldn't be investing in them if they weren't going to be prepared to. But it's a really interesting observation in terms of it can be make or break, and it generally hits I think it's at the 2 or 3 year mark. Generally, this is where the make or break is. Is
That's
that
right.
is that the
That's
stat?
right. Yeah, that's right. So I see probably 50 times a week, minimum 50 times a week, founders like this. This is going to be it. This is going to be it. This is going to save the world. This is going to solve everyone's problems. And it's like, thank you, but I got to move on. And I don't say that to be dismissive. It's, I can't make an investment in somebody who is just so nose deep in their own solution. And it's like, that might work for this. Look, maybe you do have 5 customers. Maybe you've got 10 customers. Maybe you've got 100 customers. We're looking for 10,000 customers, right? We're looking for 100,000 customers. And what some people are describing is a small business, and that's great, right? Like a small business, a lifestyle business, that's a fabulous thing to have. So I'm not knocking that. I'm saying that's not the right business for venture capital. Venture capital is for the type of business that wants that 10,000 customers, that 100,000
Yeah.
customers, that million customers. So I see it at least 50 times a week, founders so deep that they can't look up. However, rarely I see founders, and this is not nearly so common as I would like. There are founders in the past year, I've given these folks advice. There's a couple of these, very, very, very few. I can count them on one hand, literally. There are companies that, I come, they give me their pitch. It's a great pitch. They've got some customers even. And I'm like, this is a great product. However, Salesforce is going to eat your lunch tomorrow. So if I give you a check for $500,000, Salesforce has a check for $5 million that they can drop into this, right? Like Oracle has a check for $50 million they can drop into this. So what's the real problem that you're solving here? What's the real product underneath this that Salesforce isn't going to say, hey, that's worth our time. Let's put these guys out of business? Because an acquire is not always in the cards for folks. So, this is a feature for someone like Salesforce. So how do you deal with that? So here's who I want to invest in. I want to invest in the founders who I say, hey, look, what are you going to do when Salesforce comes here? And then 3 weeks later, they call me and say, Anthony, we've got another pitch. We've got another product. Can we just get 15 minutes of your time? And I want to show you this new product, this entirely new take on everything. And guess what? We've built this 6 times because we've started 5 other companies that failed, and we had to build this part each time.
Yeah.
And it's like, hold on a minute. Now you're onto something.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's that whole holding here and then being able to go. And so that, I guess that's what I was
Absolutely.
asking you. It's, you walk away, you see 50 of them a week,
Yeah.
and it's the 50 that are not prepared to, change their map, if you like, or pivot or shape it, shift it along. Instead, it's the ones that do that. They're the ones that you'll take a second look at, right?
Absolutely. And
They're
in
the ones
fact,
that are,
I like quitters. I
yeah,
like quitters because it says, look, I'm not so attached to my bad idea that I'm going to ruin my life on it. It's like, all right, maybe it was a good idea, but it's not financially lucrative, right? Like that might be a lifestyle business for you. But venture capital, we're looking to build large companies. We're looking to build generationally large companies. And, to the founders who are able to pull back and say, okay, that's a smaller problem. I can actually solve a much bigger problem, and it's a blue ocean. There's nobody else here. There are no competitors. There's no market. So now the challenge becomes, instead of market penetration, it becomes defining the market itself.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Gosh, it's so interesting the way you explain it all. Tell us a little bit about partnerships in
Sure.
terms of, from what are you seeing from your own partnerships, you've had a few along the way. What do you see as making a successful partnership? Like, again, back to this point here, I keep doing this because it's a great visual, it's a great analogy, and it's good for the listeners to hear this because, quite often partnerships can get to the same point where they're both like this. And, sometimes partnerships just need to end. Sometimes partnerships need to evolve. Like, what do you see as the ingredients to a long-term, durable, full. And I'm going to throw in fun partnership because I really think it's important to be able to have a little bit of fun along the way as a partnership. It's like a marriage, right? It's a business marriage.
Absolutely. And you are so correct on that. It's almost as if you were in this room for when the Axion Ventures conversation happened. My business partner, Shun Fu, said, and my wife was here too. So my business partner said to my wife, he's like, is it okay if I marry Anthony in business? Because this is like being business partners is, my wife and I own property together, and my business partner and I own investments together. So, it really is a serious relationship like that. So, what makes that work? Underneath it all, Shunfu and I are friends. I can go to him for anything, and in fact, I have. He can come to me for anything, and I will always accept him. So, underneath the business partnership there's a genuine connection. We genuinely hold each other in high esteem. We've worked with each other, going back to grad school, and we've been critical of each other's work, but critical in a constructive way, critical in a way that, hey, you know what? I want to show up again tomorrow morning and work with you again, right? Like that's a great business partnership. That's a great relationship. And that's what we look for in both startup founders and investors too. My worst nightmare is an investor who is just a nightmare to work with. This it's like, hey, I gave you $1 million and I need it back now to pay my mortgage. And I'm like, that's the wrong asset class, pal. Like, we can't do that. Making sure that your investors are, some of our investors want to give us money and then never hear from us again, until we start doing distributions. I'm like, can't I send you the monthly newsletter? So, communication is a good thing back and forth.
Communication and interest. Don't you think? Interest in your investments, interest in like,
Interest in the investment, absolutely. That's where I was going next. On the other side of it, there are startup founders who, this is a fine line to walk in venture capital investing because, I could get like a little too close if I'm investing in my friends, right? So now if I'm investing in my friends, I'm doing the investors a disservice because I'm saying, hey, here's my buddy, let's give him some cash. And I rely on the investors, right? So that's why that relationship with the investors is important to say, hey, look, I know you guys are close. I know you like these founders, and that's great. And that's not an appropriate investment for this fund. On the startup founder side, it goes back to that coachability thing. And it's not necessarily like, hey, Anthony's going to come in and tell you what to do. It's let's talk about this. Is this product really the right thing? Can we add some features here? What's the priority look like? What does the roadmap look like?
yeah,
How are we going to spend this money and invest this money so that we get more on the other side? So genuine connection is
It's so
really
important.
important. It's really important. And I know a lot of people are, they want to maintain the separation of work and life, right? Like any separation of church and state in the United States. And it's like business is pretty personal. Business and professionalism is a measure of, this is my opinion, professionalism and business maturity is a measure of how well a person has their act together. And it's really important that you're kind, respectful, open, you deliver constructive criticism rather than hostile criticism. You genuinely listen, you're empathetic, you can put yourself in the other person's shoes and also be able to get the point across like, hey, look, I know you're here and I wonder what it would look like to think about things in a different way.
I love that. So good. It's so true. I've got a couple of final questions for you, or observation. This one, I'd love your thoughts on it. I think about conscious capital and everything, even what we've been talking about on the show today. And, I'm a partnership from an investing perspective, even from features, new features, everything we've talked around. How important do you think, conscious wealth is and conscious investing? Like if we think about conscious capital, like the VC world as we know it, it hasn't always been a conscious capital and everything else. It's been quite potentially the opposite, if you like, from my own observation. There is a lot at play at the moment, and it feels like for me, again, coming back to this map, everything's up for grabs, power plays, from a geopolitical sense, all of that. Do you think that from a venture capital perspective, the conscious piece is more important than ever in terms of the evolution of the ecosystem, if you like? I know that's probably a bit of a soulful
Yeah,
question.
that's a lot. That's a lot. I'm always trying to be conscious of what we're investing in.
Mm.
Shunfu and I ultimately want to do good for the world. And that means how do we make people's lives better? How do we make people's jobs easier? How do we help people make more money? How do we help people solve problems that we previously could not solve? Some of the things that we do not invest in are surveillance software, spy state software, and I know there's a lot of ESG considerations as well. I'm super conscious of those. And um, I know that, this makes it really hard investing in the AI space because, like data center construction, that takes an incredible toll on the environment,
Yeah,
on
100%.
the power grid. Like residential consumers are now subsidizing data center electricity costs. And that's not something really widely publicized or discussed. But I mean, look, my electric bill's gone up personally.
Water,
Yeah,
water usage as well. Like I was speaking to a guy the other day in climate tech in from a water usage perspective from the data centers. I was like, whoa, like had no idea. Yeah.
it's incredible. It's incredible. And so this is where Bernie Sanders might have a point that there needs to be federal regulation around this, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know that it's appropriate that residential electricity bills subsidize data centers. I don't know that that's appropriate. So, that's one of the things that I struggle with investing in the AI enterprise software space. Like, all right, we're investing $5 trillion over the next 5 years, 10 years in the United States to build out all these data centers. And okay, there's land, there's traffic, there's jobs, there's power, there's all kinds of other concerns that are, the pace of progress is moving really fast. And this is where I think the Bernie Sanders op-ed had a point in that, all right, like maybe it's not slow down, but maybe it's like, how do we understand this better
Yeah.
before we commit and act?
That's what yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
is
It
that
was
kind
a
of
big question. It was a big question I asked. And the reason I ask it is because I think it's like just one step at a time. But how are we making things better? How are we making things better for the planet, for society at large, in terms of, yeah, I think there's a way to be better in business, in life, in everything, in investing in everything we do. With two more things, I did say final two questions. Axion Ventures. Where does Axion come from, the name, and what's next for Axion? And then I'll ask you my final question.
Sure. An axion is a hypothetical particle that has to do with dark matter, which is a huge gravitational force in the universe. So, all that to say, we're trying to build something incredibly attractive for both investors and startup founders.
Amazing.
We're trying to build something attractive for startup founders in that we're helping you build your business. We're identifying what works, what doesn't work, and how do we scale that into a generationally large company. And for investors, how do we responsibly take your money and invest it into companies that are going to do good in the world such that the world's a better place, and then you get a pretty good return on investment on the other side. So yeah, an axion, a particle that is gravitationally attractive, and Axion Ventures is we're trying to be very, very attractive for both the investors and the startup founders.
Great explanation. I love the gravitational attractiveness as well, and the abundance that comes through from that. You
Yeah,
pre-show. This is going to throw you. You pre-show. You said, "Oh, bees, right? If I have a drink of my protein shake," and
yeah.
you just been to the gym. I see active recovery as a huge part of, sustainable growth and scaling and building in business. You've only just started this most recent company. How important do you see that in terms of for founders, in terms of keeping them, emotionally, physically, mentally fit? How important do you see active recovery?
Super important. And this is, again, this goes back to, business maturity and professionalism. You can tell a lot about somebody by, the face they greet you with or the tone they use in their voice. And you can tell, is somebody defeated? Is somebody down? Is somebody up? Is somebody happy? Is somebody excited? And, like you can tell that like pretty quick within a second, like we're able to see that. And so, active recovery is super important for everybody. Startup founders, especially, it's like I remember my startup founder days. I was working, 30 hours a day. And like, I'm not even joking. I'd get up at 6 a.m. and I'd work until 10 a.m. the next day. So that was bad. That was bad. I don't want startup founders doing that. I would coach startup founders out of that now.
Yeah,
But
same.
active recovery is so important. Journaling. And I don't mean like in the like, oh, here are my feelings way, but in the here's what I've done. Here's the impact it had in the world. Now, how do you feel about that? That's another thing entirely. But here's how I got here. Here's what I did. How do I repeat that? Right. And it's like it goes back to the map behind me as well. So
Yeah. Because I was going to ask you what would be your, from a map perspective. Let's finish on that. What would be your bit of advice around the map?
sure. It's really the map is incomplete. So look, maybe modern maps of planet Earth are a little bit better, but we've got maps of the universe that are not complete. We've got maps of the galaxy that aren't complete. So, like humans, there's a never-ending source of problems to solve. With the universe, there's a never-ending map to create. And that map starts right here. That map starts in solving our problems. That map starts in solving maybe your problem, maybe my problem. And, how do we expand out from that slowly so that we can metabolize what we've learned and say, hey, is this the right thing to keep doing? So yeah, so it's always, let's see what's out there, let's check our understanding, and let's go a little further.
I love that. Gosh, Anthony, what a great conversation. Thank you so much. How do we find out more about Axion Ventures? How do we find out more about you? Where's the best place to check that?
Sure thing. So the Axion Ventures website is www.axion Axion.ventures. No .com there. It's just Axion.ventures. You can find out more about me on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn/in/Anthony J. Keys. And I'd be more than happy to connect with anyone on there. You can also reach me by email .ventures.
Anthony, thank you so much for your time. So much wisdom, so much being present, but also, I should say, the future. Incredible conversation. So many takeaways for the listeners for this one. So wishing you utmost success with Axion Ventures. And yeah, who knows, maybe I'll get you on again at the end of the year and we can have a little year in review of where everything unfolded. Where did the map? What happened with the map? Where did the map land for both of us? It'll be a great conversation. So thank you so much.
I would love that, Bea. It was absolutely my pleasure to be here with you this evening, and I look forward to talking with you again. Don't be a stranger, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.